Welcome to the Driven by Us podcast, driving change in STEM and media within automotive and motorsport. This season, we'll be speaking to key figures and inspiring role models within the industry. Welcome back to the Driven by Us podcast, where we dive into the fantastic world of motorsport. Today, it's all about media and the creative sector in motorsport. We share inspiring stories and backgrounds. We meet the people who make the industry and make the sport what it is. My name is Cayana Freeman, and today's guest is a creative. You will have come across his pictures if you're a fan of motorsport. His name is Shyam Rajdev. Welcome, Shy. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, really good. Really good, thank you. How are you?
I'm really good too. I'm excited about this episode.
Same. Yeah, what an intro.
Yeah, I know. I'm not done. Prepping the episode, I looked at all your pictures and I have to say you're incredibly talented.
Thank you.
I'd say every F1 fan would have seen one of your pictures because they're just amazing.
Maybe.
And you've got quite the journey. You started as a digital marketing intern 10 years ago, I believe.
Yeah,
and then
10 years.
Yeah.
Jesus. 10 years ago. That happened by chance, I think. But yeah, it started from an intern and sort of it's a weird little process, a little bit like a direction to where I am now.
Yeah.
Working in F1. So yeah.
I mean, I have done my research, so you do interrupt me if something's wrong. But what I've researched is that you started as a digital marketing intern, then you went into music journalism, then did social media and content management, which is similar to what you do now.
Yeah.
Social media producer for Lewis Hamilton, senior content and social specialist at McLaren, head of content and socials at Sauber, and now you're head of content at Andretti Global. Yeah. All this, but you didn't study photography, did you? Tell us how you ended up in this field in photography and motorsport as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, that's it's a lot. So I didn't study photography. I think I sort of fell into photography. Photography was always like a bit of a hobby in the background of everything else. And I was one of those like young and I guess just naive, maybe, students just completely blissfully unaware about what I want to do with my life. Yeah. And I sort of fell into, in that process, there's that time where you're just about to apply for all the universities and you're figuring out, what do I want to do? And I was one of those that I didn't know what I wanted to study. Yeah. I just knew that university was the thing that everybody was doing. So I knew that I liked music. I knew that I was good at English in school. So I figured, why not try the music journalism route and see where that takes me? And I don't know why I picked it. I couldn't tell you. I don't know why I chose the university I went to. It was just sort of like a last minute, we need to pick something. We've got a few offers on the table. Let's just go with it. And it was just, everything sort of fell into place. Did music journalism for a while. Ended up finding like a bunch of like online music magazines and like small scale, nothing like Enemy or Kerrang, but reached out to them. Just very much just wanted to try and make the most of this bizarre decision that the very last minute decision I decided to make. And it worked out, and they ended up sending me to like some really cool festivals. And then I landed, it wasn't even that long into it, but I landed, this will all make sense. It's all a weird little journey, but I landed it was like an interview, kind of like we're doing now, but with Zane Lowe. Who else was there? There was Ed Sheeran. There was Simon from Biffy Clyro. It was part of MTV's sound chain. It doesn't exist anymore. So it was a thing back then MTV were doing with Relentless Energy. Yeah. And the PR agency who were putting on this event were there. And I got talking to some of them whilst I was there doing these interviews. And it was like, I can't remember, there was Hugh Stevens. There's a bunch of radio presenters. It was a really cool event. I ended up talking to some of these guys and was like, I'm a uni student. I'm about to graduate. Or maybe, it was before graduation, looking for like internships or jobs or any perspective that's happening. Do you guys have any opportunities? Let me know. Here's my information. Stayed in touch with one of them and they said, we're actually looking for an intern like quite immediately. Could you start in 2 weeks? And I was like, so summer holiday, I think it was summer break. I can't remember now. Ended up doing this internship for maybe 2 months. Yeah. And then getting involved directly on this MTV sound chain. Yeah. And doing a shoot at one of Biffy Clyro's gigs. And it was insane because I was on the side of stage and I'd listened to Biffy Clyro like at university and school. And so it was an incredible opportunity. Ended up going back for graduation, finished uni. And then before I left, I managed to secure a job with them like full time as like a junior digital PR person. I don't know I can't remember what the role was really. Basically all hands on deck.
Yeah.
Ended up doing a few festivals and whatnot with them. And then at that time, there's a huge transition with them. And they got bought out by, I don't know if I can mention competing brands with this one.
Yeah, you can.
Is that okay? Okay. So Coca-Cola ended up buying Monster Energy. Monster Energy bought Relentless Energy. And so we all came in-house into Monster Energy.
Right.
Sorry, Red Bull. And then I ended up working on the Monster side because that was sort of more aligned with my passions. I really loved the action sports, the motorsports, drifting, BMXing, skating. That was sort of more where my heart aligned. And so I took the role. There was a role available. I took it, and then did that for a few years of managing the social channels for Monster Energy UK, Ireland, and Germany, and sort of went from that to finding a ceiling, thinking, okay, this isn't right. I need to figure out the next step up. And then I left there, went to, I think I took a couple of months off just to travel because I didn't get that opportunity before uni. Went traveling for a while. Ended up. Oh God, I don't even know where I was after that. Where did I go?
Too many countries.
Too many countries. Too many companies. Anyways, I ended up at so Lewis Hamilton was sponsored by Monster.
Yeah.
So this is a weird little journey. Lewis Hamilton was sponsored by Monster. He had his own can with them, and so I ended up doing a few little photo shoots and interviews with Lewis under Monster. And when I left, Lewis's manager was looking for someone to manage all of Lewis's socials and content and be on someone to be on the road with him, documenting his everyday. And so the someone at Monster talked to Lewis's manager. They came to there's this guy, he's leaving us, but he would be great for this role. So I ended up jumping straight into that. Wow. And it was a crazy, hectic, weird few years because of COVID and everything. So it started off like this really cool uphill trajectory, and then sort of slowly became this right, I'm working from home. This just doesn't feel the role was supposed to be. Yeah. So I was just in daily communication with Lewis, posting on his channels and
flex.
Yeah, right. It's crazy, but it's true. There's no other way to say it. It was just this weird time in life where this person that I was not looking up to, but you know his presence, right?
Yeah,
sure. Everybody knows the name Lewis Hamilton. And so ended up doing Australia with him, the Melbourne GP, did a couple of his fashion shows and stuff. And I think that alone was enough of a portfolio then for me to be right, I've done my bit here. There's nowhere else for me to sort of take this. And McLaren was there, and so they were looking for someone to sort of launch. Electric is sort of where everyone seems to be going now in motorsport. And so McLaren were looking for someone to sort of head up this electric field for Extreme E, Formula E. So my job is essentially to go in there, not only sort of work on the F1 side, but really lead on this electric side, because I'd launched Lewis's X44 Extreme E team. So that was a good basis for me to be right, this is what I can bring to the table.
Yeah.
So I started there. My role ended up being more electric and XEFE rather than F1, which is sort of then at that time where my passion was.
Yeah.
I was at the door, but then COVID hit and I was right now I can't travel. So I came so close, and then for it to be taken away, I was right, I need to see this through. And then this opportunity came up with Joe Guan Yu, current Formula One driver. And so the manager of Lewis was managing Joe then.
Right.
I told you this all links. Yeah. It's weird. It's a weird little journey. And so I did the first race, which would have been probably Bahrain that year. I did the first race, and then I sort of just over-delivered to the team and just gave them, assets to share, because Joe's not going to use them all on his channels, and so they ended up pulling me, not really in-house, but sort of I was basically doing both Joe's and Sauber or Alfa Romeo socials.
Yeah.
Then for the foreseeable. So the gentleman who was doing all of the social media and everything at Sauber, he left to go to Ferrari. And so then there was another hole there which needed to be filled. And so they were just Shyam, you can do it.
Just the man for it.
Just do it. And so I was very much explaining to them, in other teams, there's 7, 8 of, in McLaren, there was 8 of us.
Yeah.
And here there was just one. So I was doing all of the photos, all the videos, all the social posting, all the planning for like the next events, like joining all it was just a one-man band doing everything. And then from there, I just felt like the transition to the stake team and everything, again, I just wanted a new challenge. I wanted to try something new. So I jumped over to Andretti. We were trying a different series with IndyCar. Phenomenal series, much more access, which is what any creative or creator wants.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's it. So now on to the next step. I'm jumping into freelance and seeing where that takes me.
How are you?
Yeah.
Okay, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I have a million questions already.
Go for it.
About that. I'm like trying to keep track.
I've been just talking at you.
No, it's good. It's good. It's great. It's a great overview of what you've achieved. Firstly, I want to know, you kept saying like everything sort of fell into place. I swear I'm going somewhere with this. And you did. And I just want to know if you think you would have done things differently if you'd known. Would you have gone into photography and tried for motorsport earlier? Or are you glad that you had that music background and you're glad that it kind of happened like that?
Really good point. I don't know. I'm kind of glad it happened the way it did, because I missed one thing in there, which I worked at Atlantic Records. And I was managing, I had the largest roster on, at the label, where I was sort of doing the digital, like posting on socials, creating assets for the music videos and stuff. And there was more links where like I brought some of the artists that I was working with through into the F1 space as like, influencers, guests, whatever that might be. But there's always been links, and like music and sports has always gone hand in hand. And so it kind of wasn't really... It just worked. I don't know. I don't think I'd change anything. I think I've learned a lot from that side. There was a lot of digital and social media involved on that side, which then translated to what I do now. And I think, they think slightly differently in the music world, where things are very, very fast paced.
Yeah.
F1 is just that same ball, which is rolling constantly. And it's just, you're competing all the time with other teams on social media.
Yeah.
So you have to just be as fast as possible. I think music taught me that. So I wouldn't change a thing.
Good.
Honest truth, yeah.
Nice. That's good to hear. I mean, you're going freelance now. I would like to hire you next. Please take over my socials, honestly.
Yeah.
Have you seen a change in the industry? You said it's good to be fast paced, but obviously social media, there's been quite a huge hype with motorsport, with Drive to Survive, social media, influencers, content creators. Has the industry changed within the years that you've been in it, and how?
Yeah, I think, social media has only become, it basically, as soon as Drive to Survive dropped, I think social media just became tenfold for the teams, for the individuals within the sport. It used to be a thing where, even drivers couldn't partake in social media if they were in F1, if they had a seat. There were like rules in place for it, and now it's just become sort of synonymous with the sport, because Drive to Survive's created a really interesting fan base, a very young fan base, and they want so much from the sport. They want to be part of it, they want to be involved, they want to be close to it, and social media is the only way for those who can't attend a race for whatever reason that might be. It really brings them closer to the sport. So I definitely think teams have expanded from where, I guess 5 years ago there would have been only one or two members of a digital team, has now grown into like a McLaren, Mercedes. Like these teams have, Red Bull, they have such big digital teams, and they don't attend all the races, but there's so many people working behind the scenes, but they are massive teams. Digital communications, that it's such an important part of a Formula One team, or any team for that matter. It's just grown exponentially. Yeah.
Do you think that growth has also made the sport more inclusive? Because obviously, Driven by Us, we're all about the diversity, inclusivity, and it's definitely reached, I think, more fans with the outreach that social media has to offer. Do you think it also makes it more inclusive for everyone to participate in the sport?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's just that immediate connection to a sport that anybody can have. It's not just social media, but even just attending a race is a lot more easy to do. Yeah, I think across the board, it's more accessible for sure.
Have you seen the change as well with your own eyes?
Yeah,
in the paddock,
absolutely.
and is it becoming more diverse?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's from 5 years ago till now. There's definitely, diversity across the board. I'm not just talking color. It's gender. It's everything. There's just age as well. Like there's so many young people now. filling the paddock, and it's great because, you know, this new generation are bringing in the latest info as to how the world works. Like, if we are a certain way now, we should be. We should think a certain way. We should act a certain way. And so these guys are bringing, these kids, these young people are bringing this into the sport.
You just said kids. I was going to say, you are a young person.
True. Yeah, well,
you're not a kid, but you're a young person.
Young, but there's, you know, there's they bring by like tours of children from schools.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because I didn't get that opportunity when I was younger. Yeah. And they're coming in, they're asking all the right questions. There's girls on track. There's all these different groups that are like, they come through and they're doing their tours, and it seems like they're here and gone, but what they're taking away is probably a lot more valuable than we realize.
Mm-hmm.
Like, getting into that paddock is so hard. It's not easy.
No.
I fell into it, but a lot of people haven't. It's been a graft. Like, you know, I'm not that I haven't grafted, of course, it's been hard work, but it's not just handed out, is what I'm trying to say. And so for them to be in the paddock, talking to the drivers, talking to the engineers, the mechanics, the communications, the digital, like there's a plethora of jobs there's a whole spectrum, and they're able to see this. And now it's like, right, the doors are open. Like, teams are offering roles to just about everybody now, you know, across the board.
And how old were you when you first stepped into the paddock? And did you ever feel like you didn't belong? Did you feel quite welcomed at first because you were young and you are from an underrepresented background as well? How did it feel for you? Did you ever feel any of that?
I mean, I noticed it. It's one of those things. You'll notice it, but you don't say it.
You don't think about it too hard.
You don't think about it too hard. I think it's no. I mean, you definitely. I can't remember what age I would have been. This was 5 years ago. It was my first time in the paddock, like in there. And my first step into the paddock was with the greatest driver of all time. So I had a very different experience. But I certainly saw the lack of diversity. But then I also realized, you know, I wasn't taught any of this stuff. Like, this wasn't an opportunity for me at school. I wasn't brought up in the right area to know the word Silverstone, you know, like my dad had told me about like Monaco and the racing going on there and the cars. And so I had a background of cars, but like the cars themselves, not racing. So this was a whole new world for me. So seeing it first time was very much a learning curve, as like, this is how this works. But I don't think I ever felt any sort of, I don't know, any issues, any heavy-weighted, I don't know.
Prejudice?
None of that. Yeah, it was very welcoming. I think everybody there was there to work.
That's good to hear. And I guess also you were in a good position working alongside Lewis, that you were on the side that was probably back then already more diverse than maybe other corners of the sport. What was it like working for Lewis, and what did your day-to-day, if that exists, look like?
Yeah, so around about the times when I would be traveling with him, it would just be, there'll usually be an aim as to what we're doing. If it's an event, are we traveling somewhere? I wouldn't just be with him just on the daily on a whim, unless we were at a racetrack. So one of the trips we went to the Lewis x Tommy show, and I knew in my mind what I wanted to create. So I just messaged Lewis earlier that morning. I can't get my words out. And just told him, like, this is the aim. This is kind of what I want to do out of this trip. This is the style of video. Sent that same example over to the Tommy guys. So basically everything was all pre-managed. There's meetings in place. Like, it's not just the capturing, it's everything pre. So the planning and prepping for that, the vision for it. And on the day, then it's just leave him to it, and just, if you need him to do anything for you, just ask him. Otherwise, you're filming essentially fly on the wall of his day, capturing stuff, editing it, sending over to Tommy to approve. We post it on Lewis's channels, and then that's it. It's out in the world. It's on to the next one.
You talk to it so casually, as if it's like, oh, what you do.
This is what music taught me. I think it was just like the speed of everything.
Yeah.
You know, like, you really had to be on your game. You had to, like, the conversation can be over very quickly, and you have to capitalize on that. So it was very much like, get it out on socials, right? What's the next thing we need to do? And I remember, I don't know if it was that specific trip. I'm pretty sure it was, but I can't remember the dates of it. But I remember the next day, we were there overnight. The next day there was a filming thing with Joe Jonas. And it was something that Joe was doing, some sort of TV series or something. and the idea was just get as many photos as possible. They're handling the video, so every day had its aim, and then there was a lot of like tension, I think, in the world at that time. Everybody's locked in at COVID and stuff, so the things that people are more aware of now because they're online, they're on social media, they see everything a lot more in a lot more detail, and so there were issues happening across the world. So then Lewis was like, right, I want to talk about these things, I just need to do it in the right way. So then it would be my job to then communicate with his communications team, his PR team, figure out what's the right messaging for this. How do we put this out there to fit within Lewis's brand or name, or make it sound as authentic as possible, or help in any way if that is possible. So it was nonstop. It was very much nonstop. Even though you think these guys they're not posting on social media every day, you're probably not doing anything. There's so much happening in the background.
It sounds full on. It sounds really exciting as well. Like the way you're name dropping.
Yeah.
Jonas was there, and then we were at the Tommy show,
It was just non-stop.
Were there any, I mean, the whole career kind of sounds like a dream, but were there any pinch me moments where you were like, or even imposter moments, imposter moments where you're like, is this real? Yeah. What am I doing here?
Definitely a lot of imposter moments.
Yeah.
I don't know. Nothing like stands out because I think there's been so many where I'm even just stood on the grid at the drivers' parade when the guys get on a van or get in cars and they drive, and you're still on the grid and you're looking out. There's a crowd there, and you're just like, how is this?
How am I done here?
Why am I here? It's not.
Yeah.
It's just it's insane, and it's been a lot of hard work to get onto that to that spot. But yeah, definitely a lot of those moments. Yeah, there's I can't pick one, but yeah, there's definitely been a lot of pinch me, this is what's happening. Even being on stage in like festivals and stuff, like there's like how is what is life?
I get those moments as well, like you're walking, you're doing your thing, and then you stop and you're like, how am I here? Or like, how did this happen?
How is this
I'm getting paid to do this?
It's insane.
I
remember one of the things I did. Okay, this was really cool. There's an artist called Getz who's he's a rapper, a London rapper, and when I was at Relentless, they sort of funded an EP with Getz and this producer called Rude Kid. And even that for me was like being in the studio with Getz and seeing this entire EP, this album come to life, and being on set in the music videos and stuff. I was like, this is what's happening? How is this real? But that for me was the first time, I think, just thinking back, that was the first time I was like, this is really cool. I want to do this. That really was like, right, I need to do this, but a lot more, a lot bigger, somehow. Figure it out.
You did say it's a lot of hard work, and I think that's often forgotten when the glitz and glam, when what you see on socials. I also find a Grand Prix weekend, a race weekend, is not that glamorous. It gets presented as quite glamorous, but it isn't if you're working there. What's one thing you wish you'd known about the industry or Formula One before you actually started working in it?
Question. Yeah, no, you're right. It's not glitz and glamour. I don't know. I think I've been very much like hit the ground, work, deliver the best you can possibly deliver, and leave a good mark. I mean, I think it's definitely. I don't know. You're right. It is, because as soon as you rock up at the race weekend, you're not always traveling around. It's a hotel, racetrack, rain, airport,
cold,
fly home. Exactly.
Tired, no sleep. Again,
it's just like there's been so many delays and races and stuff. Like I don't know. There's everything that's happened. I've tried rather not to let that taint my vision of the sport or motorsport in general. It is what it is. This is just how motorsport is. Because I came up through, at Monster we were doing grassroots, like rallycross. No, it's not really grassroots at all, is it? We were doing like rallycross, like world rallycross. And that again, I guess, teaches you, you're in the trenches there, like you're in deep mud, and deal with it. Yeah. That's it. Just deal with it. Nothing's going to change right now. You're in the situation, deal with it, deliver the best you can possibly deliver, and on to the next one.
You've mentioned there's obviously different racing series. We've got rally series and everything. Often we only talk about Formula One. It's seen as the pinnacle. People aim to work in that field, and they kind of forget about everything else that goes on in the world of racing and motorsport. From comparing Formula One, say, with IndyCar, what are some of the big differences that you've seen?
It's a very good question. There are a lot of motorsports. F1, I'd say, is definitely still the pinnacle. Similarities, I think. Is that the question? Similarities or
or differences? Either one.
I guess, I don't know, access is a lot more in most other series.
Yeah.
Access.
Does that make your job easier?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I've been in situations where I've freelanced directly with F1, and that gives me more access than being a content creator with the team. And in other motorsports, you can get right up to a pit wall. You can get into the garages. You can get in. You can go anywhere. And
sorry to interrupt, but that's one thing that I think is so important, because people are always like, when I go present at a race weekend, they're like, oh, but where's the content? And I'm like, I can't just film anything anywhere. I'm not paid to be a content creator that get access to everywhere. Like, there's strict rules, isn't it? And it's forgotten as well that people who work in the creative field like they have to hustle to get the moment. It's 100%. Not just like you can walk up to the podium, get the picture and share it. Great pic.
I try and document this if there's time, but there's like, I've been at podiums before where you're trying to get the shot in front of you, behind you, next to you, that you're in a sea of people. Like you don't, it's so much more difficult because of that, that intensity of it all. We're just being surrounded by people. But that being said, I definitely think it's any sort of advice would be like, always start that rallycross, Formula E, XE, those again, they're not grassroots. Other series, it's always worth approaching those first before stepping into F1, because I think that really shapes you as a content creator, as a digital marketeer. You get to see things that, I don't know, maybe you have more access there or less access, whatever that might be. You learn so much just by doing one event there that could translate equally to an F1 event. There's just a lot more rules in F1. But if you already had all this freedom, shaping to the rules is not too hard. Going the opposite way, I think, is maybe slightly harder, because then you're given, like, what do I do now? Can I go there? Like, you're asking all the questions. Like, it's so much easier to take a step back from all the freedom, I think.
Yeah. And you touched on the different access to motorsport there. What advice would you give to some youngsters out there that want to get into the creative field, but they're even a step before that? They're not there yet where they want to apply to other racing series, but what do you think, if you have a creative gene, you feel like you love motorsport, where do you start?
I think for sure it's easier to go into the grandstands, as a general admission ticket. You have so much access there now to shoot through the fence. Like, if you do have the equipment, and you're fortunate enough to have the equipment or can afford the equipment, you can shoot from anywhere in the track. It's just, you're just getting a different perspective that, again, even us content creators don't have. So I've seen it, and I have people follow me on Instagram and whatever, and they're showing me photos that they've taken from the grandstand, and they're just progressively, they're just progressing and getting better. I definitely think it's just attending as many events as possible, shooting as much as possible, especially from like a photography perspective. It's just practice. There are certain things that you can do to become a better photographer. Once you've learned the camera, then it's all just about, okay, how do we make this shot as artistic as possible, or as different from the other thousands of photos of the same angle as possible. So it's just if you're interested in something, it doesn't have to be motorsport, whatever you're interested in, even like attending festivals, if you're into music, fashion, whatever it is, just put yourself in that scene, in that area, and create as much as possible without stepping on anyone's toes. That's just the way to do it. It's just put yourself there, be present.
You mentioned earlier that you tried to document a little bit the access problem and like how your work comes to be. Do you also hope to provoke or create some change with your work? Because the pictures and the content you share is beautiful, really, really nice to look at. But do you also hope it goes that next step and hope to change something in the industry, or maybe portray a message?
Not necessarily. Honestly, I think I just love to shoot. Yeah. That's just it. Like, me, I'm not trying to change the industry. F1 is the way it is. I'm just a very small cog in the massive, massive wheel of motorsport, and so no, I don't think I'm trying to invoke any change whatsoever. I think it's just more so me being present. If I'm able to help anybody else, I think that's probably more valuable. Or I get people asking, even like there's like young photographers that will pop into, and they're paying their own way into the paddock, and they're paying their own travel and their own hotels, and I find that more inspiring, as to seeing these guys who are so hungry for it. This is all they want. I think it's cool to work alongside them and help them in any shape or form.
We've discussed on this podcast before that there's probably a space for everyone who wants to be in the motorsport world.
Absolutely.
Even within Formula One, there's so many roles, different roles. What are maybe 3 like adjectives or personality traits that you could single out that would be good to have to survive in the industry? Because you said it's a lot of hard work.
A lot of hard work, yeah.
And it isn't, well, you said it was welcoming to you, but is an exclusive space to work in. Are there 3 things you could pinpoint that would help you in the industry?
I think you just have to... 3 things. I don't know how to narrow it down. I think one of them for sure would just be to be as flexible as possible. It's just the most, everything's going to change. Everything that you put your mind to, and it's going to be like, this is my list for this week. It's probably not going to go to that plan whatsoever. Flexibility, I think, is probably one of those. I don't know what the opposite of this would be, but just like, I know that in the sport, it can really be draining. It can be quite draining, but if you're bringing in negativity, I guess the opposite of positivity, trying to bring a more positive light or spin or personality to the table, because there is a lot, even within the I've worked for small teams, I've worked for big teams, and especially in the small teams, like or the teams sort of further down the championship, there's a lot of negativity in there sometimes, and you sometimes need to take it upon yourself to be that positive light in the team, there's going to be a lot of times when you're like, it's the same thing, different weekend, and how do we put a spin on this? It's just trying to be that positive light in the team. I'm not sure what the final one would be.
I mean, that's great. Those 2 are great. Yeah,
it's quite difficult. I think there's so many different personalities across motorsports, but I definitely think that motorsport is a certain way where nothing will ever go to plan. If you're able to overcome that and oversee that and just being like, right, this is the plan for this weekend, but it's probably not going to go to plan, dealing with it, and also just it's the lifestyle of it as well. Like, are you able to even handle traveling all the time and not seeing your friends or your family or your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever, all the time? Are you able to handle that pressure, and how do you handle it, and how do you overcome it and stuff? It's tough. It's not easy.
Yeah, I agree.
But if you're able to handle that, I think it definitely takes the pressure of the job off.
And there are some similarities of what you just mentioned, kind of there's no plan in the industry, to how your career came about, that you said a lot fell into place or happened, or you met the right person, or the right person was missing from a job. Is there anything where you say people could go and network, or where they should start speaking to people, any maybe fields, environments, online? How do you said they should come into the paddock, take their pictures, practice, but on a more maybe networking basis? Have you got any advice there?
It's a difficult one, actually, because there's not, I think teams take it upon themselves to do their own initiatives, and there are driver initiatives like what Lewis has done. There's no specific place where people can go to. I just think like LinkedIn is a great place for as soon as jobs pop up, just start already. I mean, for me, I've had people ask me this before, and I just tell them, like, these are the right people to talk to. As in, I'll give them the exact name of the person. Like, I'm looking to get into this communications role. Right, okay, this is the person you need to talk to in this team. This is the person you need to talk to in that team. Hit them up, talk to them, ask them all the questions. More often than not, they are more than welcome to answer those questions. Yeah. As far as a specific place, I don't think there is. There's just what's nice to see is there are initiatives that are popping up slowly but surely, that are sort of more inviting, like drivers going to schools. And at the Indy 500 a couple months back, our drivers and a few other drivers went to one of the local schools, and they were just playing games with the children and teaching them. And I guess it was like presentations on, and so they're learning from like a very, very young age about what this is. But there's no like, this is the place you need to go to. There isn't, unfortunately.
No.
Or not that I'm aware of, at least.
What inspires you then? Because you've come a long way and you've really done some great work already, and there are a lot of people who get inspired by you. Is there anyone or anything that still inspires you to capture the essence of what you do capture and to create those incredible images? I don't think there's an individual that inspires me. I think I'm inspired by the other creators that I'm lucky enough to work with. There's a lot of talent in that paddock. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of talent in motorsport in general. You don't get there without having some form of talent. And that, I think, is what keeps me going. I'm probably more competitive than anything.
Okay.
Probably more like, that guy took a really good photo of this. How do I do that? Or
Let
like,
me beat him.
Yeah, like this video asset was really cool. It's what's annoying is a lot of the industry is just like copying what other people are doing. Teams will be like, each team will have their own WhatsApp groups and they're sharing what other teams are doing and how do we replicate this? How do we jump on this trend? And so a lot of it is just copy. But I definitely see the individual talent there and whatever they create or whatever they're posting about. Like that I think is what keeps me going. It's like, right, I can do that. That's what I want to do. So at the next race or the next opportunity, I want to try and create that shot, or I want to try and create that video asset, or I want to put myself in a position where I'm shooting this, or there's another series here that I want to. Like it's just up. I think it's just how do you keep going? How do you keep progressing? Because using a camera is easy. That's the easy part.
You said I think I read that you first got a camera from your dad. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was. I still got it. Yeah,
you still have it.
Yeah,
can you still take pictures with it?
It can. Yeah, it's a 35mm. It's like an Olympus old 35mm film camera.
Yeah.
And it still works. It still works.
Nice.
Yeah, I probably should maintain it a bit better, but yeah, definitely, it still works.
We haven't really touched on your childhood in that, but that was your first exposure to film, would you say, or to a camera?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say your parents did have an impact on where you are now, and that you kind of maybe knew that this was an interest you're going to pursue?
No,
not really.
No, not at all. I think they have very different backgrounds. It's we didn't have like. We moved around a lot when I was younger, and so I was fortunate enough when I was 10 years old, I moved to South Africa and was there for quite a while, for quite a few years, and that I think that made me see my dad capturing moments on camera because it's such a beautiful place. I won't go into it, but like it's just such a beautiful place. There's so much to shoot there. There's so much to document or capture. That made me want to do the same thing, and so then when slowly, I got my, it's an awful camera, but I ended up getting like a 12 megapixel tiny little brick camera.
Okay.
Started using that, and then everybody slowly started getting like phones with color screens, and you got cameras now, and so it just progressed into me just wanting to document life. Ultimately that's the whole point of this, right? Like, document life. That's all it is. And so I just started off in that sense, but no sort of drive from parents to do that. I think for them it was just like just do your thing, just do it and be the best at it, and that was it.
I think that's good to hear as well, because I feel like a lot of young people out there might not have the backgrounds from home. They might not have family in the industry, but they have this longing or inspiration or maybe talent to get into creative fields or motorsport. And it's good to hear that you don't have to come from the background to go where you want to go.
Absolutely. No, it's nothing about what your parents are doing at all. You just need to be hungry enough for it, put yourself in the right place and chase it, because it's not going to come to you, right? Like nothing, no job, no matter what it is just going to be handed to you. You have to want it, you have to chase it, you have to work for it. Yeah,
and hopefully there'll be more and more opportunities for young kids to get into it.
I've had no guarantee of the next job. It's like whatever I'm in at the moment is put everything into it. Absolutely everything. There's no excuses, and whatever happens after that happens, whatever that might be.
You've mentioned that you moved to South Africa. Obviously, you've travelled loads with your job.
Work, yeah.
Is there something you learned from all the different cultures you were exposed to? And do you think that bit of diversity, because obviously we speak about diversity within motorsport, but you are exposed to lots of different cultures. Has that had an impact on you as well?
I think it's definitely been, I think when we went to Australia, that was sort of the first time we did it as like like an outreach. There was a lot of sort of culture brought into the paddock, whereas you don't really see that across the other races. They'll bring in
Australia?
Australia. So they brought in like Aboriginal artists, they were bringing through like Aboriginal practices. So there's like I won't try and butcher it or try and explain it because I don't understand it fully. But there was pre-grid. They brought out rather a smoke, it was like a plate with some leaves in it, and it was smoking, and the smoke is essentially a blessing. I could be totally butchering this, but essentially that was the process of this thing. And the drivers went on. We sort of partook in this activity. That was the first time I think we've had something that sort of brought the outside culture in. Aside food is there, but it's the actual culture. You're right. It's not done nearly enough.
Because you stay kind of on a race weekend, you're like by the paddock,
Absolutely.
you're from hotel, you don't get exposed to the world.
Your hotel, car, paddock, car, hotel,
exactly.
airport. You don't really get to, unless there's like a triple header going on, and like say for instance in between, it'll be Austin, Mexico, Brazil, so people won't go home in between those races. They'll go directly from Austin to Mexico, stay there for a while, or stay in Austin for a while, or that's the only time when you really sort of see what's around you, and get to go and maybe explore for a day or two.
Do you think bringing the outside culture, because F1 and motorsport is exposed to constant culture changes because of the fact of travel, do you think it would help bringing that outside culture in more so the inside would diversify more as well, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. I think it's all I'd love to see is like, us being more, or motorsport being more open to the surrounding areas, like like the Brazil circuit, for instance, Interlagos is surrounded by like favelas. Like it's there's so much that happens outside that circuit. It definitely needs to be there just should be for sure. I think it'll help.
What are you hoping for from your own career for the next years? You said you just went freelance, so what are the hopes and dreams now? I
think now I just want to be happy. I've passed the. I'm 30 now. I've passed the.
Saying that as if you're 80. I'm 80
now.
No,
I'm not.
I'm 30. You've got your whole life in front of you.
I know. But it's just in my head, I'm like, I've got not limited time, but I've got a certain amount of time where I just want to achieve certain things, I guess. And now it's just I've been through all the jobs and the graft and everything. Not that that's going to stop me from grafting, but. Whatever, I just want to be happy now. Now it's just, step away from doing as many races and have a life and spend time with friends and family and just, not make work everything, I think I did that for a long time and now it's like 24 races in a year. I did it for 2 years, like nonstop. It's tough.
It's tough.
And so now I'm taking a step. I don't think I'll ever do beyond 18. I think 18 is the sweet spot. 16
oh my God.
16 would be the sweet spot.
I have 18, the biggest respect because I mean the most I've done in a year I think was 3.
It's tough.
But it's tough,
right?
And like I'm only starting with my career, right? But it's so good to hear these things because I think I'm at that spot where I'm just work and I'm already seeing how all the other things in my life are kind of taking a step
100%.
back, and it's really about that balance, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yes, you have to be passionate, you have to live for it, and like I'm 25, I feel like this is the point where I have to do it all. But it's good to hear as well that you say you're still passionate about it, but 100%. Also life
needs to and I that's probably the part that I wish I learned earlier, is that don't sacrifice that section for the career, like
would you have done it differently?
It's a good question.
If you could go back and tell young Shy.
I'd probably say to value my time away from track a lot better. Value the work and life, value the life part a lot more. But there's I don't know if there's people, it's this like they've been doing this for the last 20, 30 years, going to every single race, and they make it work. But I guess in between the races they're not doing as much, and I guess that was the hard part, is that social media never sleeps.
Exactly.
It's always go. And so that's the hard part, is to like find that balance,
And having been head of content and working in that fairly new world of social media and excelling at it, what's one thing that you would give as advice to kids who maybe are really into social media, but there's so many creators out there? How do you make yourself stand out from the crowd, and what are some things that you should focus on?
That's a very difficult one. There's a lot of competition in the influencer
a lot
space.
There's
a lot
of talent as well.
A lot of talent, but there's just a lot of competition because they're all talking about the exact same thing. And they're all so good as well. I think ultimately, out of all of it, your personality is what needs to be sold, because the information is the information.
Yeah.
That's just the dotted line.
Yeah.
It's what you need to, what you're selling of yourself. Like, how do you make people relate to you as a person? What are you bringing to the table that will make people think that they can relate to you? They can empathize, sympathize with you. They can, they can realize that there's someone in you that they maybe they have some qualities which they share. Like, that's the part which I think is more important, is the personality of it. That's what sells the content. That's what's going to make me watch beyond the 2 seconds. It's like, this person looks interesting, or they sound interesting, or they've got a different take on this, or there's humor, or, it's those little things. There's a really good creator called James Cocker, or Coker, maybe I said that wrong. He is phenomenal. He basically has just brought humor to the content creation. Nice. And so there's no way brands can go after him. There's no way motorsports can go after him. He's in his lane. Nice. He's making really, really funny skits and videos, and he's so good, and he's winning at it. It's just finding that niche, finding that angle that you think you can do the best. If it's information, stick to it, because there's that as well. There's people who just report on the news and motorsport news and who's moving where, and because it's constant, it's non-stop. It's finding that niche of yours, but personality always comes on top of everything.
And I think when we circle back now to the topic of diversity and inclusion, that's really important to know as well. If you're from an underrepresented group and you might not have seen yourself as much in the career you want to go into, that might be an advantage, because you might have something going for you that the industry needs that's not out there yet. Exactly. You can be that person. Just because you don't see that person yet, that might just mean that there's a need for you.
100%. Yeah, it shouldn't be a deterrent at all. It should just be more, if anything, an inspiration to just do it yourself. You know? Be that person for the next you, I guess. And
I think you are that person for a lot of next yous. I think you really are. You're a great inspiration, and anyone who hasn't seen your pictures should really take a look. They're amazing. We have this tradition where the last guest asks the next guest a question, and then you get to ask without knowing who the next guest will be.
What's the topic?
Anything.
Okay.
It can be anything. I mean, ideally motorsport related or diversity related, but it can be, what did you have for breakfast yesterday? Okay. But your question was from James. What was the most remote place or track that you've worked at, and how did you sorry, let me do that again.
Go for it.
Your question from James was, what was the most remote place or track you've worked at, and how did you set up there? What were some of the challenges you had to face?
Remote place.
Yeah. No infrastructure.
God. Yeah, that's tricky.
Because I bet you've seen some.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
But because I've always done it with a brand, there's always been something there. But I think the most remote would probably be Mid-Ohio, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, that was like small circuit, not much going on. We were working in the trucks.
Oh, wow.
That's probably the most remote. But that's not that remote. I don't know. Gosh, that's a good question.
We're saying anywhere like in Iceland or like...
Oh, I wish. Oh, no. Okay, wait. No. Okay, yeah, that helps. Okay, thank you. Most remote, for sure, has got to be one of the Extreme E races. Yeah. Because those are in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. We did Senegal.
Oh, wow.
On the beach, and there's nothing.
Nice.
There's nothing there.
Wow.
for miles. But even the Saudi desert, where did we do recently? Oh, no, that was Scotland. That's not very good.
Scottish people, close your eyes.
Yeah, I think Senegal will probably be my pick.
Was it good? Did you enjoy it?
Incredible place. Very hot.
Yeah.
Very hot. Beautiful. I loved it. Yeah.
This country.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Have you got a question in mind for the next person? Literally anything. We've had some really good ones. Like,
go on. I need some help.
Had oh God, now I forgot. Oh yeah. The one before that was would you get rid of Monaco of the GP for a GP in Africa instead? Would you get Monaco off the calendar, for example, like that? Yeah, so we've had different questions. It doesn't need to be motorsport related. Oh man. What was the most bizarre story you had on a race weekend? We had that, which was good as well. I'll take the funny. Go with the funny one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What's the funniest or most bizarre race weekend you've had? Okay. Yeah, that's good. What's the funniest race weekend you've had? I'll take that. Most embarrassing moment yes, let's do that. Let's do that. That gets the clues. I've had some and yeah. Do you want to share one? No. It's online already, actually. Oh, is it? But ask the next person, what's the most embarrassing moment you've had on a race weekend? Nice. Make it general. Okay, most embarrassing moment. That's great. Oh, I would have some as well. That's good. That's for another podcast. Shai, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It was so good to talk to you. And yeah, hopefully we'll see lots of your work coming up. I don't doubt it. Yeah. This was the Driven by Us podcast. Thank you, Shai. If you liked it, please share it. We love when you share content, and we hope you enjoyed it. Until the next episode.